All right, so if you're managing databases on AWS or maybe you're studying for certification, you've definitely come across RDS Blue/Green deployments. It's one of those services that can seem a little bit like magic. So today, we're going to pull back that curtain and see exactly how it works and, more importantly, what you really need to know. Let's get into it.
You know that feeling, right? You see a database upgrade on the schedule, and you just feel this sense of dread. It usually means late nights, a ton of careful planning, and, let's be honest, a whole lot of stress. Because historically, changing a live database has always been a super complex and risky business.
So that really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? How in the world do you pull off these critical updates on a live production database without causing downtime, without risking any data loss, and without unleashing total chaos on your team and your users?
Well, this is exactly the problem that AWS set out to solve with RDS Blue/Green deployments. So let's break down how this whole managed service actually works.
So, what is it, really? At its heart, the concept is incredibly simple and, honestly, pretty elegant. You've got your current production database, let's call that the Blue environment. What the service does is create a perfect, synchronized copy of it, and we call that new staging environment Green.
And this is a great way to picture it. On one side, you have Blue. That's your live database, handling all the production traffic. And on the other, you have Green, which is an exact clone, right down to any read replicas you have. Now, the secret sauce is that AWS keeps them perfectly in sync using something called logical replication. This means you can go nuts testing on the Green environment with real-time data, and your Blue production environment is completely untouched and safe.
Okay, having a clone is cool and all, but the real magic, the whole point of this thing, is the switchover. This is that moment of truth when your tested Green environment becomes the new production Blue. So let's look at exactly how AWS pulls this off so smoothly.
Now, this is way more sophisticated than just a simple DNS flip. AWS has this whole automated safety-first workflow. It starts with a bunch of checks, then, and this is the most critical part, it briefly blocks new writes on both Blue and Green. It waits for that last little bit of replication to finish, it does some clever renaming of the instances behind the scenes, and only then does it open up the floodgates for writes on the new production environment.
Yeah, let's just hammer this point home because it is so important. That moment when writes are blocked is the safety net. It's the mechanism that guarantees the Green environment is an absolutely perfect mirror of the Blue right at that instant of the switch. This is how AWS can promise zero data loss.
So you're probably asking, okay, how long are writes blocked? What's the downtime? Get this, typically it's less than 1 minute. For a major database upgrade, that's just incredible.
And believe it or not, it's getting even faster. AWS has been improving this constantly. For MySQL databases, they now use a native feature called offline mode, which can just terminate thousands of connections almost instantly. This has taken a big chunk of that switchover time and crushed it down to just a few seconds. That is a total game changer.
Okay, so we know what it is, we know how it works. Now let's get to the most important part. Why would you actually use it? What are the big wins here?
I mean, the benefits are pretty massive. You get that minimal, almost negligible downtime. You have a completely safe, isolated environment to test on that's a perfect clone of production. It's like a full dress rehearsal. If anything looks weird, the rollback is super simple. You just don't complete the switch. And maybe best of all, you don't have to change a single line of application code because AWS handles swapping the database endpoint names for you.
And you'd use this for all those high-stakes things that usually keep you up at night. Major version upgrades, which are notoriously painful, this makes them a breeze. Complicated schema changes? No problem. Scaling your instance up or down? Easy. You can even use it just to apply routine maintenance with total confidence. All right, now for all of you studying for your AWS certifications, lean in close. This part is for you. Like any awesome service, Blue/Green deployments have some limitations. The fine print. And you can absolutely bet this stuff will show up on your exam. So let's just get straight to it. For the exam, knowing what Blue/Green does not support is honestly just as important as knowing what it does.
Take a good look at this list. These are pure gold for exam questions. You cannot use Blue/Green with RDS proxy. That's a big one. It doesn't work with cross-region read replicas. And here's a huge one for all you infrastructure as code folks. It is not supported by CloudFormation. And be so careful with this last one. It supports multi-AZ instance deployments, but it does not support multi-AZ DB cluster deployments. That is a classic trick question right there.
So let's say the switchover was a total success. Everything is running perfectly on the new environment. You're ready to celebrate. But hold on. Don't close that laptop just yet. Your job is not quite finished.
This is another area that's critical for the real world and for the exam. You have to remember that your new production instance is a brand new resource with a new ID. That means you have to go in and manually update things, like your IAM policies, and point your monitoring tools to the new resource ID. And of course, there's the really big one, you have to manually delete the old environment.
So let's end on a final, very practical question that builds right on that last point. What is the one mandatory step you have to take after that successful switchover so you don't get a very, very unpleasant surprise on your next AWS bill?
And the answer is simple. You have to manually delete the old Blue environment. I cannot say this enough. AWS does not delete it for you automatically. It keeps it around just in case you need it, but you are paying for it the entire time. Forgetting this is a classic and very expensive mistake. So if you remember one thing today, make it this. Once the switch is done and you're happy, delete the old Blue.